Okay, we're ready for our next game, game 2.
Once again, white developed with e4.
So far we're following the first game.
Black responds with e5. And now white played bishop to c4.
This is a much better move than getting the queen out, like in our previous game.
Black responds with d6.
This move is a little bit passive. It closes in this bishop. I would recommend rather developing this knight or the other one first.
And now white plays knight to f3.
That's a fine developing move, getting ready to castle.
And black played bishop to g4.
Even though this is a developing move and seemingly good one because makes a pin, right? The white knight is tied down now, cannot move because white would lose the queen. However, black neglects two things. One, that it doesn't develop the king side, doesn't get ready to castle, which should be a priority in this case. The other one is that it puts the bishop on an unprotected square. Let's stop here for a moment and see what black should do instead. The most natural move, getting the knight out to f6, would be a mistake, an even bigger mistake than the bishop g4 move. Namely, because it allows the white knight to get to g5. This is an opening trap you should remember. Now the problem is that there is a threat on the f7 pawn, both from the bishop and the knight, and there is no good defense to it. Black is getting in trouble. Therefore, the better move is to develop the bishop first. In this case, this is an exception. Normally, I recommend developing the knight first. This is an exception when it's better to develop the bishop first. Bishop e7. Now, the knight g5 is not yet possible because the bishop would capture. And let's say after white castling, then already the knight can safely get out because now, after knight g5, black is completely fine by castling and so defending the f7 pawn a second time. Let's go back to our game where black played bishop g4.
White plays knight to c3.
White proceeds with developing, controlling the center.
Black plays knight to c6.
That's a fine developing move too.
h3.
This is the critical moment of the game. The black bishop is under attack and needs to decide. It has three choices. It can go back, it can move maintaining the pin, or capture the knight.
Now black retreats the bishop to h5.
Let's talk about the other two choices that I mentioned before. If black captures the knight on f3, black gave up the pair of bishops. We'll talk about that at another segment of our DVD series about a pair of bishops, why it's better to keep both bishops compared to, let's say, one bishop and one knight. But generally speaking, that's a disadvantage to give up a bishop for a knight, just like in this case. The queen would capture back, the white wouldn't need to ruin the pawn structure, let's say capturing with a pawn, and would threaten with checkmate right away. Now you may say, hey, we just learned from the previous game not to get the queen out early. Well, that's true, but here it's different. We're almost completely developed. By the time black defends against the checkmate, we are ready to castle. And then the only piece left to develop is our bishop on c1. And here, we didn't just move our queen out. We did it out of necessity. We had to recapture. So that's certainly an exception from the rule of not getting our queen out early or not moving the same piece a second time. Obviously, if we need to recapture or one of our pieces is attacked, we need to move it away and need to move it a second time. So those rules are guidances, not things carved into stone. The best choice black had was to actually retreat the bishop. We'll see why moving to h5 was a serious mistake. And now comes a beautiful part of the game.
White plays knight takes e5.
This beautiful, beautiful combination was invented by a famous player from a long, long time ago by the name Legall, L-E-G-A-L. Now, it's amazing that white lets the queen hanging.
Black took the queen. Bishop takes d1.
Before we see the end of the game, which comes very quickly, let's see what would happen if black captures the knight instead. If the pawn captures, it's real simple. We just capture the bishop and white won a pawn. On top of everything, we threaten with checkmate again. Black has no compensation whatsoever for the lost pawn. Let's look on the other hand what happens if black captures the knight with the knight. Now again, we do capture the bishop with the queen, but now the situation is different. Black can capture our bishop. Wow, we lost a piece. Wow, did I make a mistake here? Almost. Well, try to think for a moment. How should we get that knight back? It's a tricky move, a move that's easy to overlook. Moves that are from one part of the board all the way to the other are easy to overlook. With this queen move, we check the king and fork the knight. And black will lose the knight. The best black can do is block the check when we get the knight, and we have a healthy extra pawn for white. Well, seeing all of this, black decided, but let me take the queen. That's the strongest piece in chess. But let's see what happens now.
White played bishop takes f7 check.
Now comes one of two deadly checks.
Black plays the only move, king to e7.
And white is ready for the final move that ends the game real quick.
And now white checkmates with knight to d5.
A truly beautiful checkmate. Look at the board. The king is in the middle of the board. Black is an extra queen. Doesn't help. The king is in checkmate. What did we learn from this game? Well, black did certainly a lot better than in the first game. Was developing the pieces, was controlling the center. However, forgot about two things. One, it forgot to develop its king side. If you remember, the black bishop, knight, rook are still sleeping there on the king side, while the king got checkmated in the middle of the board. Another mistake black made, got the bishop out to unprotected square, to unsafe squares. That's what he had to pay for.